Hey, Nation, back with Jamison West. Jamison, where are you today?
I am at my place in Las Vegas.
All right.
Sunny, windy. The last couple of days have been a windstorm that have more or less blacked out the city. It's been something else, but
Oh, no kidding.
I
Wow.
don't know.
It's
Yeah, that's
something.
crazy.
Yeah, we just had tornadoes last night in central Texas. Now they were about 30 miles north of me. They did some damage, but this it's crazy out there. Speaking of crazy, boy, the topic of the day is Datto being acquired by Kaseya for 6.2 billion. That's some real money. That used to you could put a pipeline across Alaska back in the day with that kind of money.
Yeah, I was thinking about buying it, but the checking account balance was a little low. So,
What are you hearing? What are you hearing out in the community on the acquisition? What are you thinking?
every time you see a big, well, so the two conversations I've seen predominantly, one has been the natural knee-jerk reaction of a lot of folks who are customers, um, which usually the loud ones are the ones that are panicked when there's probably no immediacy to panic about, right?
Right.
So, and then you see everybody else kind of jump in and say, "Calm down, nothing's changing tomorrow." Yeah, but all the threats of I'm jumping ship and all. So there's been that ordinary chaos when a large acquisition happens, which for me that's almost just entertainment value on social media and the like. So that's been interesting to watch. On the larger side, the concern that I hear most frequently from people who are really thinking about things in the industry, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a concern. It's just that notice that we are going from a three-party system to a two-party system. Like, what does that mean to the competitive landscape? What does it look to the smaller players? Does BMS survive business? That probably not. Like the PSA, I can't imagine it would. So it's like that gets kind of interesting. So like stepping back and saying, what are the ramifications of something like this over a 1, 2, 3 year period, as
Yeah.
opposed to freaking out about tomorrow, which is nothing to do, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's boy, never a dull moment in our space. What was it? Barracuda just got acquired. I'm not as familiar with that one. Did you catch that one fly by?
I mean, barely. The rate and size of the consolidation message has been out there for a while, but it just feels when this happens, you feel it. You're like, wow, okay, it's serious. You see a lot of MSPs rolling up, and PE firms are coming in at a pace that's never been matched before as
Yeah,
well. So it's frenetic at the very least.
yeah. On the emotional side of selling, related to your book, do you think internally at Datto or at Kaseya, and maybe you've had private conversations, maybe not, the news is so fresh, but does that mess with your head? I work for Datto, and my head is a little jiggly right now. Does that affect you, do you think, in these big mergers? Like, oh my goodness, where do I fit?
I suspect the folks who are tied to the sale, but because the book that I wrote is really focused on small business. When you kind
Right.
of get executives and shareholders and equity folks, stakes like that at the top levels of a company the size of Datto that sells for 6.2 billion with a B, probably not. They've been thinking about this. They've been planning it. It's a game at this point, right? With the money,
Yeah.
it's the folks who are the I think the reaction from that perspective that comes is more from people who are extraordinarily bought into the culture. And I don't really have commentary on the culture at Datto versus Kaseya, but there's I know a lot of folks at both companies, and I don't see them as similar cultures. So that'll be a really interesting challenge to bring the organizations together, in my opinion. The culture is certainly different, and
Yeah, what I
that's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'll be the story to follow. The Of course, I don't have visibility into the cap table over at Datto, but I'm wondering if my friends are going to be made whole and taken care of. So, that's a lot of money floating around, and I'm assuming what was the young kid that started Datto? I forgot his name.
Oh yeah, back in the day. So Datto
Yeah,
I
I
don't
used
know
to
why.
talk to him, but he
Yeah,
seemed like he was generous. The point I'm making is, I'm assuming he had a fairly decent cap table to take care of the people that made him.
absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, Datto and when Datto went into the acquisition of Autotask, and it was a good, everybody was always taken care of, right, across those.
Okay.
That was my perception from the outside. I don't have visibility either, but if you look at the folks from Datto who stuck around or from Autotask, I should say, that stuck around and helped make Datto a stronger company, it was, yeah. I mean, there was, I think, not unlike, all the things Arnie did at ConnectWise when they were going through acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
There was a fair amount of sharing, and there was definitely some play in the outcome, right? So that helps. That always helps keep people around, and those golden handcuffs work. So
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Well, my prediction coming out of this is that, now the industry is back to your point about concentration and a couple big players. They're getting so big now, the big two, for lack of a better word. There's only a couple people out there that could then acquire them. And I've spent a lot of time with IBM over the years, and IBM is always kind of looking for a new home, right? They sometimes miss, right? I mean, they did pretty well with the Lotus acquisition and Lotus Notes and so on, but they've had a few misses along the way. I think Red Hat's been okay for them, but it's either ServiceNow or IBM. I mean, it's going to take a big company to acquire the big two. You know what I'm saying? We're running out of buyers, man.
yeah, so you got to kind of wonder what the valuation of Kaseya would be after that kind of acquisition. And they own a lot of other companies too, right? I mean, there's a lot of Kaseya company. There's a lot out there, and so yeah, it's getting kind of stunning at this point. Like we're getting into the greater than $10 billion valuations. Yeah, you're right. It's limiting. Yeah, not that many companies much bigger out there.
Yeah, who would have thought it back in the old early SBS user group days with Steve Banks, right? We're sitting there on a Thursday night. We couldn't even imagine what we
Yeah,
just saw.
no, absolutely. Because the companies that we were going to with PSAs had, I think back then, Arnie had 35 staff, right? That was the big company.
Yeah.
That was the big one.
All right. Well, Jamison, we'll talk to you next time. Good luck and stay healthy.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.